Hi, welcome back. Here we are now about 275 miles off Lunenburg, so we are down to 10% of our journey left to go. As you can tell, we're trucking along here at the moment. I'm sure you can see the view out the windows. We'll get some footage outside in a minute, but we're sitting on about 11, 12 knots, running up to 13s, 14s, and that's not surfing, that's flatline speed. So the apparent wind angle is about 80 degrees, and we've got about 20 knots blowing outside. Okay, so this is where we are now. This is Newfoundland over here, Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, Cape Breton, and then Nova Scotia with Prince Edward Island in the corner there. And if you go up that way, you're off to Quebec and into the St. Lawrence waterway onto the Great Lakes. So our journey has been pretty much a decent rum line straight out of the UK. And I took a little bit of time in the last 24 hours just to make my way around St. John's, the Avalon Peninsula, and do a job on it where I had lots of room. The wind now is coming from the southeast, which is down this way, and then it's going to come round to the southwest, and then to the west, and then to the northwest, before finally going to the northeast in the next 24 hours. So you can see my forecast written over here. Okay, so what I do is I write it down for myself so I know what's going on. So otherwise you're constantly referring to computers for things. So what we want to do at the moment is we want to, although the straight line, we're now down onto rumline navigation, the straight line from here to Halifax is, what's the bearing? 277. What we actually want to do is hook slightly further to the south. Then when this wind comes around to this angle, we're going to be on the beat, probably going up this way. And then as it comes around further to this direction, we'll tack and go down onto our course. What we don't want to do is be exactly on this course and then be tacking 45 degrees in the wrong direction. At least I'll be able to make one of my tacks a little bit more positive than it otherwise would be. So what we need to do now is just keep everything in one piece, and that's not a metaphor, that's like literally we need to make sure that we keep everything in one piece. The strain on the rig has been more than we probably should have done to it, seeing as it's 12 years old. We've talked about this a lot. We are now getting towards the end of the journey. It's a bit like climbing a mountain is actually only 40% of the actual ascent and descent of the mountain, right? Getting down is still because you're tired and it's probably nightfall, and it's the same with this now. The end of the journey, the last 40% of the journey is 60% of the journey. There you go. Is that a thing? I think it is, because your gear's starting to get worn. I think your confidence levels come up to the point where you may start getting a bit slack about things. You start rushing and hurrying because you want to be in, or you've got an appointment or something. So let's say the last 10% is a crucial ground for us. We need to make sure we don't push anything. I'm very, very happy on this boat at these kind of speeds and far beyond this. I found something the other day, which is a screenshot taken of an old chart plotter on here, showing what I think Dominic Wave, the initial owner of the boat and the builder skipper of the boat, he had saved that picture, and it was showing 33.9 knots as the maximum speed. So I've seen 33.5 out of one of these hulls, so I know it can go much faster. I know it can go much faster on this angle. At the moment we should have the Genoa up and one reef in the main. We've got the Solent up and 2 reefs in the main. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ease off a little bit. I'm just going to come down. I've done about 4 hours kind of cutting slightly more south than my original rum line. That's in the bank. I'm not going to make it out like it's some big deal. We're still going to have to go onto the beat. It might improve my angle by 5 degrees. 5 degrees is a very small percentage increase in the overall length of what we have to do. So I'm not going to push things. So I'm going to have a look on deck, and then I'm going to bear away a little bit and flatten things off and make sure we keep this in one piece. It's I always like the view out the windows on these boats. It seems like a pretty crazy world out there. And of course, it wouldn't happen when I'm recording, but quite often these windows are completely soaked by water as the boat dips in. And the other ways I'm keeping pressure off the rig at the moment is we are way ahead of the sail change schedule, but we have no ballast in, so we're not holding the rig up against the breeze. We don't have the dagger board in, so the boat's free to slip sideways. And I've got the main really twisted off, like way twisted off compared to what it should be. So we've got smaller sails, we're not pulling them in as hard, we haven't ballasted up, we've got no dagger board in. So, and we're doing 13 knots. I do love these boats. All right, how do we slow this turkey down a little bit? Let's have a look first to what it looks like. I just cheekily put the Canadian flag up because we came into Canadian waters, so. All right, now what we do is we go here. And there we go, instant fix, like suddenly nice and flat. Everything's just another lower 40 day in the Atlantic. Okay, so that'll have a pretty catastrophic effect on our course, of course. See what I did there? We're now like 30 degrees down on where we were. See, the black line is where we should be going, and we were actually to the south of that black line. Now we're pointing, but we know that, as it says here, south-southeast for 18 knots, and then 12 hours time would be in the south-southwest. So we're going onto the beat anyway, so I might come back up a little bit, but the wind's increasing. I think it's probably time for another reef. We may change off the Solon and get onto the Trinquet now, and then we can cut up a little bit further. But yeah, we've just got to make sure that last 10% of the journey is almost the safest part, the bit that we put most effort into, because it's the bit most likely to catch us out. Cool. All right, back soon. We'll see how it sits when we've made a few changes. All right, well, that was good. So I put another reef in. Have a quick look. And I left the Solent up. We're now back exactly on course, cutting south, cutting slightly south of our rum line, doing 10-11 knots. So we've lost about 10% maybe, but again, that's all part of having to compromise and be smart. What was that thing? You got to use superior judgment to avoid situations that require superior skills. So my judgment is that it's better to go 10% slower right now and add a couple of hours onto the journey than to limp in 3 days, 4 days later with a broken mast. So it's a pretty easy decision. So last night, I managed to get NMEA feed into that radar. That radar is from way back when, like I know 2006, right? That is a big boy radar. That is a proper radar, and it has 3D as well. It can show you things in profile as well as plan. Automatic target acquisition. So many great settings. Of course, guard, zone, and sleep, and watchman, whatever you want to call it. It draws only about an amp more than Raymarine chart plotter running a digital display, which I love the Raymarine stuff, and I'd be very happy if it said Raymarine on everything, but I think that I was about to like rip out the old radar, let's get a new one, stick it on the front of the mast like I've done on Challenges. Like, no. That is a really good radar, and now it feeds in waypoints, it does everything, and it can do, it's really cooking on gas. And I was really happy with that because moving NMEA signals around the place, and I had to get into the chart plotter and work out what sentences it was sending, and getting into a bit of minutia. And it's in that minutia where you start to, you know, have a really slick piece of kit. We're a long way off that now. We haven't even got paint on the ceiling, but just little details like these little lines that see how the lines are coiled up, and they've got a little string that's holding them up. You can make a little daisy chain of those, the little rope that, the little catch it rope that's holding up the line. You can make a little daisy chain of those, so that if you've got like where your reef line's coming down, and it's say your third reef line, you're going to have a coil of line which is after you've brought in the first reef, and it goes onto the first part of the daisy chain, and then you're going to have another coil of line when your second reef comes in, and that goes onto the daisy chain, the same, and you just keep hooking them on top of each other. And then the last bit, when you actually put the reef in, you're going to have a third piece of a line, right? Instead of having like a massive load of line, you'd have this little daisy chain of things, and suddenly everything's managed. The same with the main halyard, spinnaker. Well, spinnaker halyards are either up or down, but main halyard is up in 4 different positions, and reef lines are in 3 or 4 different positions depending on the reef line. And just getting into those details, oh my god, it makes such a difference. Like, and I think it was Dominic, like the more and more I see of this, I realize this is the same rigging that's on this boat from at least 2004. I can see pictures of a lot of these lines from 2003, which means it was put on here probably in 2000, so you're looking at some 18-year-old line. But it shows, you know, it's been, I imagine, I'm guessing, is probably put on here by Blue Stube, which is a French rigging company out of Lorient, I think. And they, are they Lorient or La Rochelle? Well, somebody will tell me. But they are, like, amazing. And it's got all the hallmarks of it, the way that the reef lines are made up and stuff. And the line's been conserved, the jammers have been replaced, the lines are held on winches rather than jammers all the time. The line is oversized, it's actually oversized for those 2-speed rear winches, but it's doing its job absolutely fine. Every lashing is made up not with what you need, but like double what you need, and the elastic is not what you can get away with, but like double the diameter of what you need. And because of that robustness, or what have we broken on this trip? I dropped a bottle of bolognese last night. That's like Big Neil, big deal, big news, big deal. Tell Neil it's a big news deal for Neil. What else did I do? I did something else. Oh yeah, so the gyro, the black thing in the, where's my finger? The black thing here, which sends a signal up to here. That's a gyro compass, and the autopilot uses it as one of its options for driving. I managed to get the NMEA feed from a different source and feed it into there. And so I was like, this is cool, like I'm suddenly just getting on my game, I guess, in a way that I haven't in a while. I think what happens is you get like so overwhelmed with one boat that you just start to like glaze over a little bit. When I think of what great condition Challenge is in, and I think about my low level of interest in doing anything to her, and then this one's, you see, no paint on the ceiling, and like everything's a bit crap, and I love it. I realise that maybe a change is as good as a rest or a holiday. So I have learned so much while I've been on this boat. That's what I love about sailing, is that if you do it for a lifetime, like my friend Eric Grant, do it for or Sandy Marr, or all these other guys I know, every single one of them, like me, is learning every day. There's always something, if it's trim or meteorology or hydraulics or electronics or electrics or engines or you name it. And sometimes these revelations are so fundamental that you're just like, how have I even been out here for 20 years now and not known that one thing, you know? This is my version of cruising. It's just being out here on the boat like this. I kind of had to be in Lunenburg kind of as quickly as possible, but there was a week's spare and I've used that week. But this is as close as I get to cruising, and I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Like, yeah, I'm having fun. So if you want to keep watching, thumbs up and subscribe and something with a bell or whatever, I don't know. And then, yeah, see you soon again on the Mariner. Okay, cheers, bye-bye.